He thought losing his house was the end, until a hidden secret turned everything upside down. Before we start, join our YouTube family by subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to like this video and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. Now let's get into the story. The day he lost his home, he didn't cry, he didn't shout, he didn't even argue. He just stood there quietly, holding the keys in his trembling hand, as strangers walked through his front door. Not guests, not neighbors, strangers. And just like that, the house he had lived in for over 40 years no longer belonged to him. At 72, he stepped outside with a single bag and no place to go. The sky was painfully bright that morning, clear, calm, beautiful in a way that felt almost cruel, because nothing in the world reflected what was happening inside him. He turned back once, just once, to look at the house. The same porch, the same windows, the same front door he had painted himself years ago. Everything looked exactly the same, but it wasn't his anymore. A man in a suit stepped out behind him. "Sir, we'll take it from here," he said politely. Politely, as if politeness could soften something like this. He nodded, not because he agreed, but because there was nothing left to say. No argument would change it. No memory would protect it. It was done. He handed over the keys, and in that small moment, he let go of everything. It hadn't happened overnight. Nothing like this ever does. It was slow, quiet, the kind of change you don't notice until it's too late. First, it was the bills, then the repairs, then the things that started breaking, one after another. The roof, the heater, the small things he used to fix himself. But his hands weren't as steady anymore. His body didn't respond the way it used to. And money had become something he counted more carefully each day. He told himself it was temporary, just a rough patch. He had lived through worse. He always found a way. But this time, things didn't turn around. They only got heavier. Calls started coming. Letters, then visits. People speaking in calm voices, using complicated words, explaining things he already understood. "You've fallen behind. We need to find a solution. This is your final notice." Each sentence felt like a step closer to something he couldn't stop. And eventually, he didn't. Because deep down, he knew. Now he stood on the sidewalk, the weight of the bag pulling slightly on his shoulder. It wasn't heavy, just a few clothes, some papers, and a small wooden box, tucked carefully inside. The only thing he refused to leave behind. He started walking, slowly, not because he was tired, but because he didn't know where he was going. The street felt different, longer, quieter, like it no longer recognized him. People passed by, cars moved. Life continued, unchanged, unaffected, and for a moment, he wondered something that made his chest tighten. How can everything keep moving when your whole world just stopped? He kept walking, turned a corner, then another. No plan, no destination, just distance. Distance from the house, from the memories, from the silence that waited. Behind that door, hours passed. The sun moved higher, then lower. Time blurred, until finally, his legs gave in before his thoughts did. He stopped near a small park. Empty, quiet, a few benches scattered under tall trees. He walked toward one and sat down slowly, placing the bag beside him. The wood was warm from the sun. He leaned back slightly, closing his eyes. Not to sleep, just to rest, just to escape, for a moment. But memories don't disappear when you close your eyes. They get louder, stronger, clearer. He saw the house again, not as it was this morning, but as it used to be, full, alive, voices echoing through the halls, footsteps, laughter, the smell of food cooking in the kitchen. There was a time when that house wasn't just a place, it was a life. His life, built piece by piece, year by year. Every corner held something, a memory, a moment, a story. And now, all of it belonged to someone else. His eyes opened slowly. The park was still quiet. A light breeze moved through the trees, leaves shifting softly. He exhaled, long, heavy, and for the first time since morning, he spoke, not to anyone, just to the silence around him. What now? The question lingered, unanswered, because there was no plan, no backup, no one waiting for him. At 72, he was starting over, from nothing, again, but this time, he wasn't sure if he had the strength to rebuild. He looked down at the bag beside him, at the small wooden box hidden inside, the one thing he had protected, even when everything else was slipping away. He reached down slowly, opened the bag, and took it out. It was old, worn, simple, but important. He ran his fingers over the surface, tracing the faint lines in the wood. For a moment, he hesitated. Then slowly, he opened it. Inside were papers, old ones, folded carefully, preserved, something he hadn't looked at in years, not because he forgot, but because he chose not to. Because some things are easier to ignore than to face. But now, he had nothing left to lose. He unfolded one of the papers carefully, his eyes scanning the faded ink, and as he read, his expression changed. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but slowly, like something deep inside him was waking up. Because what he was holding wasn't just a memory, it was a secret, a forgotten one, something from his past that no one else knew about, something he had buried a long time ago. And as the wind picked up slightly, rustling the paper in his hands, one thought settled quietly in his mind. What if losing everything was the only reason he finally found this again? The cabin door creaked open slowly, as if it hadn't been touched in years. He stepped inside with hesitation. At 72, even a small step felt heavy. The air inside was different. Still, dusty, frozen in time, but not empty. Sunlight poured through broken wooden windows, cutting through the darkness in soft golden beams, revealing floating dust particles that danced in the air like forgotten memories. He stopped, his breath slowed, because something about this place felt familiar, not physically, but emotionally, like a memory he had buried long ago was waking up again. He took another step forward. The wooden floor groaned under his weight. Every sound felt louder here, too loud, as if the cabin itself was listening. On the left side of the room, there was an old table, covered in dust, and on it, a few objects. He walked closer, slowly, carefully, as if afraid the truth might disappear if he moved too fast. On the table were photographs, old, faded, but still visible. He picked one up with trembling fingers and froze. His eyes widened slightly, because the face in the photograph was his father, younger, stronger, standing in front of this very cabin. But he had never been told about this place, never seen it before, never heard of it. His heart tightened. Why would his father hide something like this? He placed the photo down and looked around again. This wasn't just an abandoned cabin. It was a secret, a life that had been erased. His breathing grew heavier as he noticed something unusual near the wall. A wooden cabinet, slightly open. He approached it, each step slower than the last. And when he pulled it open, he found documents, stacks of them, old papers tied together with faded string. His hand shook as he untied them. And then he read the first page. His expression changed instantly. Confusion, then disbelief, then silence. Because what he was reading wasn't just paperwork. It was ownership records, land deeds, and names. His father's name, and another name he had never seen before. A name linked to something valuable, something hidden, something that had been kept secret for decades. He stepped back slightly, gripping the paper tightly. His mind refused to accept it. No, he whispered to himself. This can't be real. But it was real. The cabin, the documents, the hidden ownership. Everything pointed to one truth. His father had left behind something far bigger than anyone knew. Something that had never been claimed. Something that could change everything. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. A distant noise outside the cabin. Footsteps, slow, deliberate. He turned toward the door immediately. His heart began to race, because he wasn't alone anymore. Someone else knew about this place. Someone else had been waiting. And as the footsteps came closer, he realized something terrifying. This cabin wasn't just a forgotten memory. It was being watched. And whatever was hidden here was still wanted, very badly. The shadow moved closer to the door, and just as it reached the entrance, the door handle slowly began to turn. The door handle turned slowly, once, twice, and then stopped. Silence, heavy, unnatural. He stood frozen inside the cabin, his grip tightening on the old documents in his hand. His breath was shallow now, every heartbeat louder than the creaking wood around him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice came from outside, calm, controlled. You found it, didn't you? His eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't answer. The voice continued. We've been looking for that place for a long time. A long pause followed. He looked down at the papers again, at his father's name, at the hidden ownership, at the truth that had been buried for decades. And suddenly, everything made sense in a way that scared him. This wasn't just a forgotten cabin. It was a key to something bigger, something others had been waiting to claim. He took a slow step backward. The floor creaked again. The silence outside remained. Whoever was there was waiting for him to respond. But instead, he turned his attention to the back wall of the cabin. Something was different there. A loose wooden panel, almost hidden. He moved toward it slowly, ignoring the presence outside, ignoring the voice, because something inside him, stronger than fear, was pulling him forward. He pressed his fingers against the wood, and it gave way slightly, a hidden space. His breath caught. Inside was a small metal box, locked, old, but intact. He hesitated for only a moment before pulling it out. Behind him, the voice spoke again. "This doesn't belong to you." That sentence hit differently, not like a threat, but like a warning. He didn't respond. Instead, he placed the box on the floor. His hands shook slightly as he searched for a way to open it. Outside, the footsteps finally moved. Closer. The shadow was now at the door. Any second now, it would enter. He looked at the box, then at the door, then back at the box. And in that moment, something inside him changed. For 72 years, he had lost things. His home, his stability, his comfort. But this was different. This wasn't something taken. This was something waiting. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving. He was choosing. The footsteps stopped right outside the door. A final pause. Then, the handle turned sharply. The door began to open. And as the light from outside spilled into the cabin, he made his decision. He grabbed the metal box and ran toward the back exit, hidden behind the wooden wall. The door burst open behind him. A voice shouted his name, but he didn't stop. He pushed through the narrow opening and stepped into the bright forest outside. Cold air hit his face, freedom mixed with fear. He didn't know where he was going, only that he had to protect what he just found, because whatever was inside that box was not just his father's secret anymore. It was his responsibility now. Behind him, voices grew louder inside the cabin. They had realized he escaped, and they were coming after him. He held the box tightly against his chest and moved deeper into the forest, sunlight breaking through the trees, guiding him forward like a path he didn't yet understand. But one thought stayed in his mind as he ran. If they were this desperate to stop him, then what he found inside that cabin was worth more than just land. It was worth a life. And as the forest swallowed him whole, he realized the truth was only beginning to unfold. And what came next would change everything he thought he knew about his family. Forever. The forest was silent, but his heart was not. Every step he took deeper between the trees felt heavier than the last. The metal box pressed tightly against his chest, as if it carried the weight of everything he had just uncovered. Behind him, distant voices echoed through the woods. They were still searching, still following. But now, he was no longer just an old man running away. He was someone holding a truth that others feared. His breath came fast, but his mind was clearer than it had been in years. Because for the first time, he understood something important. This wasn't about escape. It was about revelation. He stopped behind a large tree, hiding in its shadow, while the sunlight broke through the leaves above him, in soft golden patterns. Carefully, he placed the metal box on the ground. His hands trembled slightly as he studied it. Old, rusty, locked for decades. Whatever was inside had been waiting for him longer than he realized. He looked back once, no one visible yet, only silence. Then slowly, he searched the edge of the box again. And this time, he noticed something he missed before. A faint engraving, a name, his father's name. His throat tightened. Why would his father hide something like this? And why protect it so carefully? He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again with resolve. Using a small stone, he struck the lock carefully. Once, twice. On the third hit, the lock broke open with a sharp metallic sound. For a second, everything around him went silent. Even the forest, even the wind. He lifted the lid slowly. Inside was not gold, not money, not anything he expected. It was documents, letters, and a small notebook bound in worn leather. His hands shook as he picked it up. He opened the first page. And read. The words inside changed everything. His father had not abandoned him. His father had been protecting something. A hidden land deal. A betrayal involving powerful people from the past. And proof that everything his family had lost was not an accident. It was forced, stolen, silently taken over years. His eyes widened as the truth unfolded page by page. His entire life, his home, his suffering. It all connected back to this one hidden truth. And now he understood. The house he lost at 72 was only the beginning. The real loss had happened decades ago. Footsteps suddenly broke the silence behind him. Closer now. This time, they were fast. He quickly closed the notebook and stood up. But it was too late. 3 figures stepped out from between the trees. Not strangers, but people tied to his past. Their expressions were no longer calm. Now they were urgent. "Give it to us," one of them said sharply. He didn't move. didn't speak. For a long moment, he just stood there, holding the truth that changed everything. Then slowly, he shook his head. No, that single word carried a lifetime. Silence fell again. The wind moved through. The trees, sunlight flickered across their faces, and in that moment, something changed inside him. Fear disappeared. Not completely, but enough. Enough to stand his ground. You don't understand, another voice said. This doesn't belong to you. He looked at them directly now, for the first time, not as someone who lost everything, but as someone who found something worth fighting for. It belonged to my father, he said quietly. And now, it belongs to the truth. A pause, heavy, unbreakable. Then he stepped back slowly, not running, not hiding, just choosing his direction. And then, he turned and walked away, into the light. Not away from danger, but towards something greater. Because sometimes, losing your home at 72 is not the end of your story. It is the moment you finally discover who you were meant to become all along. And as he disappeared into the bright forest path ahead, one truth remained clear. What he found had changed everything. And what came next would change even more.